This is your first
It is my first.
documentary as a director. That means to me that this is a story you needed to tell.
So I used to work for Al Jazeera English as a documentary commissioner many years ago. And so, you know, a year into the genocide, it was really hard living in the United States and seeing colleagues that I really respect getting targeted and executed. And this was like 2024. It was a very different time in the world, and especially in America. It just felt like people were so quiet and were so afraid to talk about anything, to post anything. And already at that time, tens of thousands of people we know were already being killed, many of them children, and also journalists. So as a former journalist who has worked with many mainstream news organizations, to see people not speak up at all, it was disappointing and heartbreaking, and I was very angry. And so that was all these active emotions and wanting to put it somewhere, and that's why we made the film. So I made the film.
I see pictures of the journalists that have been killed. I see pictures of the children that have been killed. It's on us to make sure that their stories are told. Because if you turn on the news right now, you will not hear anything about them. So I ask everybody that made it out here today in the cold, please, anybody that you know, share their stories. Your congressman, your senator, make sure their staff knows your name and knows what you're about. Thank you very much.
You're very vocal. So this was a chance for you to get an even bigger audience probably to tell what you need to tell.
I think that was something that was so intriguing about an idea of a documentary, about a film, to be able to reach audiences that we had not been able to engage before. I mean, it felt like we were up against the same sorts of people when we were trying to do advocacy, whether it was in the United Nations or in DC or in Europe. We were talking to the same folks over and over again, saying the same things, really just kind of beating a dead horse. The idea of a documentary being able to reach everyday people and give them a sense of what was happening was very intriguing. But to be honest, I was not confident that it would be something that would materialize and that people would be interested in. And I think that was just part of the conversation about Palestine is so often dismissed and relegated to very superficial conversations. To do something deep like that to me was pie in the sky, and just really thankful that something was able to materialize out of it.
We never get to see you in Gaza, right? Because you're refused entry every time you try. Have you since been able to get in?
No, I've been rejected 3 more times since we wrapped up with the documentary. We will keep trying. I mean, I'll try again probably in May, most likely. And again, I think that's part of the problem here. It's why on earth would a doctor who was born in the United States be rejected from entering to be able to work in some of these hospitals? We know the need is high. We know what the desperation is like. But it's just another layer to this issue that I think is so important for people to hear about. You know, I think most people have trouble explaining why a doctor like myself would be rejected. And there are dozens of us who've been rejected. And at the same time, I think those same people will critically think about why food is being rejected, or, you know, why there are bombs that are being dropped that are being made by Americans and Europeans. So I think those are the provocative questions that we want to ask, and I hope that's something this film selfishly would help for me to be able to at least advocate on behalf of people getting rejected from being able to enter and stand in solidarity with Palestinian healthcare workers.
At one point, one of the doctors, I don't think it's you, mentions like if Americans knew that their tax dollars are being used to drop bombs like this, they would be against it. Your film has been traveling in the US also. Americans have seen this truth. How do you think he's right?
You know, it's really interesting. I think even before Sundance, if you were to tell me a lot of people don't know about it, I'm like, you're kidding, right? We are seeing this all over social media. We're seeing bits of it in the news. How can people not know? And then premiering at Sundance, I was shocked at how much people actually did not know. And then we premiered at True Falls, which is in the Midwest, one of the oldest festivals in the Midwest, and it was in a theater of 1,200 people. And people are shocked. And it also, so what did it tell me? It told me like, wow, we really are living in silos. We really are getting different feeds on our social media. People are actually not seeing it, because if they actually knew, if they really, really, really knew, and they saw what Dr. Thayer and the other doctors experienced, they would not be for this. And so there's almost this urgency for us to quickly get it out into the world, into these different festivals in the US and in Europe, to make sure that people actually know and that they can empathize in a very deep way that will spur them into action. So, but yeah, I guess even for me, I just thought everybody already knew.
Did you think people knew?
You know, I thought that at least in the United States for sure, and I'm starting to learn that it's a bit like that in the UK and in Europe, that there were these echo chambers that people existed in, and that the things that they were being fed to them were being fed with a very specific agenda, in mind. And I knew that was the case in the United States. So I knew if anybody thought of Palestine or Palestinians, the images that they would conjure in their heads were probably somebody yelling something foreign and then doing something violent. And I had begun to internalize that dehumanization myself in a way of, I don't think people are interested. I think they have a conception of what Palestinians and Palestine is and are, and I don't anticipate that will change. I don't think people will be able to engage deeper than that. That was what my thought was. And I think that same sort of, when we're premiering in front of these audiences and they're just seeing what's happening here, those barriers that existed were torn down. I think that's the power of film, which is, as a physician, I was not aware of, and something that I'm, obviously very grateful for. But a baby is a baby when you're seeing it on the screen like that, and you hear the cries, and you can hear the aches of hunger, and you hear the bomb in the background, and you see sort of the fear that's there. Everybody feels it. Everybody in the audience can feel it. And so I totally agree with Poh on that. It's like people have seen it. They're now like beginning to understand how, really tragic the situation is. It's undeniable. And I feel, and I think we've been, people are confirming that feeling of, okay, I've seen what this is. I feel horribly about this, but I want to do something. And I feel like I can do something. And that's rejuvenated myself, after, 2 years of kind of dealing with this. It's even me. It's inspired me when I see how people are reacting and they want to do more. It's really important that we make it feel real. Like, tell them the stories. Let them know that we're talking about human beings. You can dismiss the number and say that, oh, the Ministry of Health is not accurate, but you guys were there. You're eyewitnesses. You're a very small, select group of people that enter.
The truth of it is, if we don't bear witness and treat the genocide as a disease and go for the cause of that disease, then we're committing medical malpractice, because genocide has to be considered a medical diagnosis. It can no longer be considered a political entity. It's just that the disease happens to be a political ideology, and it still has to be eliminated.
One of the things that Mark says to you at the beginning of the film, he kind of encourages you to, or he doesn't encourage you, he tells you.
He scolds me.
He scolds you,
Yep.
Because you want to blur some images he took of wounded and killed children. Yeah. You're hesitant because we don't usually show that.
Yeah.
But he goes like, you have to show these images, and you decide that you do, which makes this film so powerful and hard, as it should. And what made you? How did he persuade you?
This is all my training as a journalist. And I was a journalist with the New York Times. I was a documentary commissioner for Al Jazeera English. I was a studio executive for ABC News Disney. And the training as a journalist in the West tells me, or has taught me, you need to preserve the dignity of those who have passed, and also, the dignity of those who have survived those who have passed. But what I learned also from Mark, and he scolded me, and rightfully, if you shield your audiences, if Western media shields its audiences from all of this, how are the people going to know? And so much of the film also is a critique on media and a critique on myself on how I had been doing things. I hope it makes everybody, especially journalists, think about their role in this. Like how has a genocide played out in over 2 years, and still people don't really know very much about it?
Yeah.
Or people are still gasping and crying as though they're seeing things for the first time? How is that possible? And as journalists, what role did we have to play in this?
Because it's too much both sidesism.
In journalism, we always talk about objectivity.
Yes.
There's objectivity, and then there's fairness. And are we being fair? And as journalists, we have to illuminate when it's so dark. And I don't know something else that is darker than genocide in my lifetime.
لا بدي هوت لا نيد هوت سلاين
ما في
ما في
بدك تستنى وقت علشان تسخن على البويلر ويجي.
احنا قبل ساعتين قلنا.
I think the microwave is broken, yeah?
Targeting healthcare workers, it's not an accident, it's a strategy. We see the same strategy being used right now in Lebanon too.
Yes.
How is nobody stopping this?
It also brings to question, how much have we normalized? How much have we normalized?
Yeah.
Okay, we're okay. Okay, just recently, right, in Iran, there was a U.S.-Israeli attack that hit a school in southern Iran.
Yes, twice. Yes.
We know it was twice, and we know that more than 160 children,
Girls,
elementary
yes.
school kids, girls, were killed. Okay, and then you think back, you think to Gaza, how many children have been killed? At least the bodies that were counted, at least it's like 17,000, 18,000. We're okay with that. So, one thing that we've been telling audiences, especially in the West, don't think that this kind of normalization is not going to come back and harm you. In the United States, we're already seeing like ICE law enforcement, immigration law enforcement, targeting and shooting Americans in the head. How much are we going to normalize? Because it's going to come back to harm us. And so with genocide being the most egregious, no, we are not for that. We are going to fight against that. And fighting against that means being true to our own values and our own principles and who we are. We stand for human rights. We stand for free speech and no censorship. We stand with no killing doctors and healthcare workers. We stand with children who are innocent.
I think the most foolish decision people in power make is that they assume that things will be isolated to Gaza or to Palestine. You mentioned how all of these healthcare institutions and healthcare workers have been targeted. And what we were saying was, this is not going to stop at the shores of Gaza. And you mentioned Lebanon. I worked in Lebanon actually in 2024 when things had first started to escalate. And we saw it then with paramedics being targeted. And I think for us, it's very clear that there is a precedent that will be established for all future wars. How easy is it to defeat this group of people? Well, just destroy all the hospitals, lose all the healers, forget about the journalists. All of these sorts of things will be in play. And so I just find it really frustrating to think that people think that hospitals being hit are isolated to Palestine, Lebanon, Iran, and Ukraine maybe, and it's not going to spread anywhere else. That it has no implications for future generations, for our children. And I think it's part of us kind of speaking up. It's just people uniting and saying, no, enough is enough. It doesn't matter if a child is going to school in Iran, in Gaza, in Lebanon, or in Poland. It does not matter. It's a child going to school, and they should safely be able to do so.
And there's a real urgency in this. Even for our team in the American Doctor Film team, I mean, part of our team, they're Gazans. They're there. How are they any different from we are? And yet, as somebody living in the West, we have so much power over their lives because of what our governments are doing. And, it's really hard actually for our team to go to these festivals and talk about our film when our team is a big part of our team. They're not doing well.
No.
We filmed our film a year ago today in Gaza. Where are we now? There's a blockade. Are we going to go back to where we were last year, in the middle of last year when there was no food going in? We have a director of photography, Ibrahim Al-Otla, a co-producer, Mohammed Sawaf. They each have 5 children. Ibrahim, my daughter's name is Naveen. She's 5 years old. Ibrahim has a daughter named Naveen. What's the difference between his child and my child? And yet, as an American, I know I have, like, me and the citizens of my country, we have so much power over his family and his life and his daughter's life. So, but it's really hard sometimes to like be at festivals. It really, because our hearts are not, my heart is certainly not always here.
No.
The fact that our film American Doctor premiered at Sundance, I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think that, I mean, Sundance is Hollywood in many ways. And to get that stage and that platform, the programmers and the head of Sundance, like, they were ready. And then the audience was ready. And then the trades and the journalists were ready. There's no stopping now. We're only going to go forward.